Okay, good morning. Then I would like to start by viscoelastic contact modeling. It can be used for polymeric bearings, for example, or for rubber contact. Then I will present you some result when one body homogeneous is viscoelastic. Then also I will present you some results when we have some viscoelastic layers and any number of layers, for example. Maybe one or two results when both materials are viscoelastic. And also when one of the material is viscoelastic and contains some heterogeneities or inclusions within one or several. Then okay, this is based on the same type of techniques, which is what we call a semi-analytical method or boundary element methods. You know that. Okay, then this is directly the application to viscoelastic materials. Then there is a few things to modify in the algorithm, in the equations. And we will see what happens when we have indentation, sliding, or rolling. You will see there is some correspondence sometimes between sliding and rolling, for example. Although we do not consider friction. Everything here is frictionless, even if you can measure some friction coefficient, some apparent friction coefficient. And now we have two functions that are linked each other, R and G. The first one is a relaxation function, which is R here, and the second one is a creep function, which is G. Just to then for this behavior, there is some stiffness and some damping. Okay, stiffness as an elastic material, and damping due to viscosity. Then we have a relation between both functions. And also you have to know that for most of what I will present, we use only one function, but it's possible to use a generalized Maxwell model to have several modes. Okay, then you can have several viscoelastic modes. For example, for tires on a road contact, colleagues used to use maybe 30 different modes. But you need to identify the parameters of the materials at different frequencies. Okay. Here it will be very simple, very academic, with only single modes. This is what we call the Prony series decomposition, when we use several frequencies. Then these are the equations. This time, U here means U3 means vertical displacement. Then this is the vertical displacement due to the load. Then you still can see here the pressure. And this time we have the green functions that depends not only on the distance from the point contact, because for example, x1 minus x dash 1 correspond to the distance from the loading point to the point you are considering. Okay, and then x1 and x2, this is x and y, they are the distance from at the surface from the loading point to the point where you want to calculate the vertical displacement. Then this time the green functions depends on the time. Then there is a time function, and you should keep in memory in the computer, for example, the history of the loading, especially for transient solutions. Then this is a description of the green function. Then this time the green functions depends on the creep function, GT. Then we know how to solve these equations using a fast Fourier transform when we move into the frequency domain. And then when you have several time steps, then alpha here is an entire number, 1, 2, 3, etc. And then we can calculate the displacement at the surface of the body. Then I like this picture because there is many information in this one. Last week I received an email from a young researcher doing his PhD, asking me some questions about that, why it is like that, I don't understand why, etc. Okay, I will explain you. it's simple, but there is many things inside. Then you have two columns. It's strange. There is some. Okay. Okay. There is two columns. The first one is a rigid sphere on a viscoelastic flat. Then the blue one is a sphere, and the black one is a viscoelastic material. Then the sphere is rigid. In fact, this is the result of simulation. Then this is not a schematic drawing. This is the exact result of simulations. There is just a scale factor to see better the deformation. I magnified by a factor maybe 10, I think, the displacement, the deformation along the vertical direction. This is why the top surface is not really a sphere, but it should be a sphere, just because it's distorted, in fact. Now, the red dashed line corresponds to the pressure distribution. Okay. Now, you have to remember that the pressure is always normal to the surface. Okay. And for example, on the right, the pressure is vertical, purely vertical. Here, this is not the case. The pressure is normal to the contact surface. Then it is inclined. Only in the center it's vertical. Okay. And because the top surface, which is rigid here, it means that all the pressure arrows goes to the center of the cylinder, of the sphere. Okay. Then you can plot them like that. They are all going to the same point. Then on the right side, you have a viscoelastic sphere this time. This is the top body that is deformed, and the bottom one is rigid. For example, if you take the pressure in the center here, from this point to this point, this distance is the same as from this point to this point. This is the same. If you take a pressure somewhere else, not at the center, but for example here, from this point to this point, the distance is the same as from this point to this point, which is with the oblique direction. Okay, that this is the same. What I would like to say is that on the left and on the right, you have the same pressure. Okay. Now there is 3 columns. The first one is indentation, then purely a normal loading and unloading, but this is under load here. The middle one is when you have a sliding indenters. You have you load the contact and you slide. Then there is no rolling of the top body. And at the bottom one, you have rolling of the sphere. Okay. Then now, okay, then this is the result after a given time. We'll discuss that later, maybe. Okay, now this is when the indenter is sliding. You can see that in front of the indenter, you have a free surface, which is not already stressed. And this is the original surface. And behind the indenter, this is not symmetric anymore, because it takes time for the viscoelastic material to relax, to go back to the initial position. Then depending on the speed, depending on the frequency of the loading compared to the relaxation time of the viscoelastic materials, this surface can be below or above. Okay? And due to that, you can observe an asymmetry of the pressure distribution. And it's not exactly the same as for elastic plastic contact, but it's the same meaning. You have not the same geometry in front of the indenter compared to behind. Then here, if you integrate the pressure, remember that the pressure is always perpendicular to the surface. When you integrate the pressure in the plane, you have 2 components, the vertical one, which is the load, and the horizontal one, which is the traction force. And you have, in fact, a resistive traction force, because here the speed is on the right, and you can see that mathematically the pressure acts against the speed. Then you have resisting force. Now, if the plane is rigid, of course, the pressure is always vertical. Then you have this type of pressure distribution. Then here, you have no resisting force. This is quite funny because this is it looks like the same problem, but this is not the same problem. Here you have no resisting force, and you have one here. Now, when the sphere is rolling, you have the same solution as when it is sliding. Mathematically, this is the same, because this is a frictionless contact, and it doesn't matter what happens. And also because the sphere is rolling, but because the sphere is rigid, there is no effect on the history of the material, because the material will enter and will exit from the contact. Then we can find exactly the same solution. And there is a relation. This is at the bottom. There is a relation. Okay. I don't know why it is like that. EF. Okay. In fact, when you have, I don't know the name of that exclamation point. What is the name of that? This character, exclamation. Is that? It should be a space. I don't know why there is that today. It's Windows. Okay. Then, if you want to compare situation C to situation E, for situation, there is in fact a relation. This is F means the normal load, delta means the shift of the center of pressure, and T means the tangential load, and R is the radius of the sphere. Then you have this relation, and here what is important, you have a tangential resisting force. Below, here, we have okay. Here there is no resisting torque, but there is still the same resisting force, which is T, which is tangential force. And the situation on the bottom right, then this time the sphere is viscoelastic and the bottom surface is rigid. Then here you can see again that you have an asymmetry of. Okay, why we do not have here a torque? This is because, as I said before, all the pressure comes to the center of the sphere. Okay, then due to that, there is no resisting torque. Okay. But in this situation, if you consider the pressure, which is always vertical, you can see that when you integrate that, they are not coming to the center of the sphere. Then here, there is a shift of the pressure barycenter of delta that produce a torque, in fact. Okay. Then just to explain that depending on the situation, which body is viscoelastic, if you have indentation, sliding, or rolling, you have to be careful. It can be slightly different. But just remember that the pressure is always normal to the contact surface. This is maybe the key for that.
Why is I'm sorry, the last slide. Why is the pressure higher for the F case? F, rolling, flexible. This is a tire actually.
This one, okay. Higher from left to right?
Yes, F.
F, okay. Yeah, this one.
Why is even in E, why is the pressure, higher on the front side?
This one compared to this one?
Yes, why is it higher?
Yes, in fact, the pressure is the same here and here.
Yeah, but why has it become unsymmetric?
It's because, in fact, the material is viscoelastic at the beginning because it's like a shock. We apply the load at t equals 0 in an instantaneous manner. Then the material has a Young modulus, the initial Young modulus, which is very high. And when you start to load the material, the Young modulus will decrease with time. And then when you start to load the front material, it is elastic with a very high Young modulus. And due to the loading, it becomes softer and softer. This is why there is this dissymmetry. And in fact, viscoelastic material, when you have an impact load, it's very rigid. When you have a very, very, very low loading, it's also purely elastic. And it is viscoelastic between these two ranges. And you have, in fact, a peak of viscoelasticity dissipation that can be shifted depending on the frequency. But at a very high frequency, it's elastic. At a low frequency, it's elastic. And between them, it's viscoelastic.
Also, is it not because the material is collecting on the front side? As the
No, there is no ridge at the front side. No. When it is elastic plastic, yes, you create some front. In fact, that you can see when you unload. Maybe not when you load. When it is elastic plastic, because when you see this type of picture for an elastic plastic, this is a total deformation. Then you see both the elastic one plus the residual deformation. But here there is no. When you unload, suddenly the contact, you will have the same shape. It will be the same shape, but after a few microseconds or milliseconds or seconds, it will go back to the initial shape. This is a viscoelastic behavior.
Then why this pressure distribution is same for B and D?
For B and D,
D.
this is not the same distribution.
B and D.
B is this one, yes. B and D.
D. Sorry.
This one, yes. B and D. Okay. Why it's the same? In fact, this is after maybe let's say a long time, because when you load, when you indent, the pressure will be very high first, and it will drop until final value. Okay, and now if you try to slide, it will be the same solution, because you keep constant the load or the displacement, and then there is no reason for which it would change. Because this is a flat surface, and it is rigid. There is no plugging effect in this situation. For me, it took some time to understand everything like that. And in fact, I got the idea to plot that due to the discussion when we submitted a paper in a journal. One of the reviewers, which is a very clever guy, which is, I think, Giuseppe Carbon from Italy. I know that it was a reviewer, and he asked many questions, and I decided to plot that to explain all these things. And it was coming from this discussion. Okay, then we will see what happened, for example, when the viscoelastic material will contain some ellipsoidal inclusions, as we have seen yesterday for elastic materials. Then some parameters that are important. Okay, we consider a Poisson ratio of 0.3. Then this is not rubber. Again, it is an academic situation. We have the shear modulus, which is 80 gigapascal, and the relaxation time, which is 25 seconds. In fact, okay, the times are not very important. What is important is the dimensionless time. Then always we plot the results, which is t over tau. Okay, then t is the time, tau is the relaxation time, and then we will compare that. And typically, everything happens around tau. For example, if you have a transient analysis, you load the contact, you slide the contact. After 1 tau or 2 tau or 3 taus, you will reach the steady state regime. Okay, but between 0 and tau or 2 tau, it depends if it is. It depends if you impose a load or if you impose displacement. But typically, after 2 or 3 times the tau time, we will reach the steady state regime. Okay, then we divide here in 40 time steps. 40 time steps to make the simulation. These are the properties. Again, these are purely academic for only one relaxation time. Then you have on the left the relaxation function. Okay, then which is obtained by dividing. In fact, you impose a displacement. Okay, or you impose the relative displacement, and you observe how the stress is varying with that. Then you can see that the stress is decreasing with time. Okay, this is the viscoelastic behavior, and this is the relaxation function. On the right, this is the opposite. This time we impose a stress, then a load on the material, and we observe how it will deform with time. Okay, this is the physical meaning of these two functions, and you can see here two examples of behavior. Okay, let's have a look on what happens when you have an inclusion. Then you have here the ellipsoidal inclusion. Then first, as always, we need to make a validation of that. To make experiments is quite complicated, and especially when you want to measure the pressure distribution, there is almost no tool for that. Then most of the time we use simulation by finite element method, and we use mostly Abaqus, but it's very costly, and you have to be careful about the boundary condition and so on. But okay, here you can see an example of simulations and with refinement of the mesh around the inclusions. Okay, then this is this is for the homogeneous body without any inclusion. Then, as I said before, when you start to load, this is the classical Hertzian pressure distribution, which corresponds to the Young modulus for at t equals 0, when you have an instantaneous load, what we call E0. Then here for us that will be the reference pressure. Okay, this is the reference pressure. I think later I will call that P star, and the contact radius, which is in a dimensionless shape 1 here. You can see we call that A star. Okay, then A star is always for us the Hertzian pressure at the instantaneous loading at the beginning. Okay. And then, as I said before, you keep the load constant, and you will see that the pressure will diminish, will decrease, and then you will increase the size of the contact. Okay. Then just to show you that we have a good correlation between our numerical technique, some analytical method, and the finite element model. Now here we added an heterogeneity, which is an ellipsoid. You can see here the size of the ellipsoid is 0.1 times the contact radius for 2 dimensions, dimension 2 and 3, and for the first direction, it's 4 times bigger than its slightly elongated ellipsoid. For the inclusions, to see something, we choose to have something which is with a Young modulus 4 times higher than the Young modulus of the matrix. Here we consider a matrix as a still, anyway, it can be in dimensionless form. Okay, then what you can see at the beginning, due to the presence of the inclusion, because the inclusion is stiffer than the matrix, and the inclusion here is elastic, purely elastic. You can see an increase of the pressure, and the maximum pressure at the beginning is higher than the Hertzian pressure, due to the presence of the inclusion, which is close to the surface. And after a given time, the pressure will relax, but you will still see the effect of the inclusion. And in fact, the effect will be more pronounced because the Young modulus of the matrix becomes lower and lower. Then the difference, instead of being 4, the ratio between both, it will become 6, 8, 10. Okay, just try to catch some computing time, but it's okay. This has been done more than 10 years ago. Okay, to do such simulation with okay, you can see a comparison of the time. As I said yesterday or the day before, we save at least 1 dimension. Okay, we can do a 3D model, a transient 3D model in the same time as a finite element method for just a 3D model 1 time step. Okay, then it's very, very efficient for that. Okay, the same, something is funny here because the color, this is the initial situation. This time we have 2 inclusions. Both inclusions are softer than the matrix. Then I think that the color, for example, imagine that the color corresponds to the stiffness. Dark is very stiff, and white is soft. Okay. Then this one is a softer one, which is 0.6 times the Young modulus of the matrix. And this one is softer than the matrix because the color is lighter, but this is intermediate between both. Then this is 0.8 times the Young modulus of the matrix. Then this is at the origin. Then when you load, this time you understand that you have two soft inclusions compared to the matrix. Then compared to the Hertzian solution, you have a pressure which is lower everywhere because you have two soft inclusions. But after a while, because the material will relax, here, for example, for the times equal tau divided by 2, half the relaxation time, here you have about the same property for the left inclusion and the matrix, and the right inclusions become stiffer. Then you can observe a peak of pressure on the right. Maybe this one is slightly softer than the matrix. I can see here because it's below the Hertzian solution. Okay. And at the end, because you relax a lot of the material, both inclusions are stiffer. Then you can see here some increase of the peak of pressure. Okay. This may have some practical applications. For example, when I spoke about the contact between the shoes and the floor, it can be interesting when you make sport to have this in mind. Okay, and the same idea, in fact, this is for another type of inclusions. This is for an ellipsoidal one, but you can see that the presence of an inclusions will become more pronounced when times is increasing due to the effect that the Young modulus of the matrix is decreasing due to viscoelastic effect. Okay, and also it's possible to, of course, to calculate the stress field around the inclusion. Then this is the von Mises stress divided by the maximum contact pressure, and okay, a different time step. At the beginning, half the relaxation times, and this is for t equal to. Okay, then this is not to solve the problem. You don't have to calculate the stress. Okay, if you don't look at the stress, it will be much faster. When you calculate the stress, it's quite time-consuming, especially because this is a 3D problem. You need to calculate stress in the 3 directions. Then you have a lot of numerical integration and fast Fourier transform in the 3D domain. When you are dealing only with the surface, and when you have an homogeneous material, it is very, very fast. Okay, now let's have a look on some results when we have a rolling viscoelastic sphere rolling on a rigid flat. Then the situation in the one of the slides before on the right, and we call omega here is the rotational speed. V is the linear velocity. R is the radius of the sphere. Okay, and then we will see what happens with or without inclusions at different time steps. And the inclusion can be inclinated compared to the geometry of the surface. And again, what is important to note, this is a frictionless contact, even if we will measure some friction coefficient, some apparent friction coefficient. For example, for the contact between a tire and the road, when you have a dry contact without water, not a rainy day, the friction coefficient can be up to 0.6 or 0.8. Which is very, very important. This is one of the major role of this type of materials. You have a very good adherence. And now, if you have some water, it is completely different because you have no adhesion, and you can diminish this value by several tenths of %. Okay, then these are the same as before. Just here, the final geometry of the final gap between the two surfaces are due to the initial gap. Okay. Delta here is a rigid body displacement. You have the two centers of the two bodies are in contact, are moving closer each other. So this is a rigid body displacement. U3 here is displacement due to due to the displacement of the surface point, and here U star 3 should be the effect of the presence of the inclusion. Okay, then you have to solve this equation. Okay, now what is important here is these three equations. The first one here is the apparent friction coefficient. Then it is due to the slope of the contact. Okay, because you deform the surface, because the pressure is always normal to the surface, then the slope is important, and then the slope multiplied by the pressure and divided by the normal load give you the apparent friction coefficient. Okay. Then in the literature there is no habitual name for this apparent friction coefficient. Each authors use a different name. Sometimes they say friction coefficient, something else, but it's not a friction coefficient, it's not a Coulomb law, it's just apparent. Then for the resulting torque, this is x1 means the distance between the center and the point where you consider the pressure. Then with this equation you can calculate the resisting torque. And then you have this equation that relates the torque to the normal load, the radius of the sphere, and the apparent friction coefficient. Everything is linked together. Okay, then these are the parameters for the simulation. If you want to redo the same, then this is the shear stress at infinity. For a very low frequency, in fact. This is the ratio between the shear stress for zero frequency and for a very high frequency, then 10. Then the Young modulus of the material is 10 times higher at the beginning than at the end. Okay. Then you have, if you plot the curve, you have something like that, and it will decrease like that. Okay, and then other parameters. Okay. And then to have the dimensionless moving velocity, we multiply the speed by the relaxation time divided by the size of the initial contact, A star. Okay. Then again, there is many results in these curves. On the top, you have two different types of loading. Then on the left, you impose a load, and on the right, you impose a displacement. And the results are completely different. Especially in terms of the maximum pressure. The maximum pressure is always lower when you impose a displacement, the vertical displacement. And again, you can see also some asymmetry of the pressure distribution. Then here in this plots, you have a three result, the finite element solution, which is in blue, one model which is in red, and it was coming from a paper of Carbon in GMPS in 2013. You can see a good agreement between all the results. However, this is calculated only in the steady state regime. Then the ball is rolling since 2 or 3 times tau. Okay. And in fact, Carbon, because it's simpler, when you have a steady state regime, you don't have to deal with the history of the movement because it is always the same. Then you reach something which is stable, then you don't have to integrate the effect of the history. This is why most researchers, teams in the world are working in the steady state regime. However, with our technique, we are able to integrate from the beginning. Then you can see here a comparison between the steady state solution and the transient solution. As I said before, you can see that in this situation, we reach the solution when t, the time, equals tau, about 1. But it depends on the situation. It can be 2 tau or 3 tau, but typically around tau, we reach the steady state solution. And you can see that you have a very sharp increase of friction coefficient. Here it is not very important. This is 3.5%, which is a very low friction coefficient. This is due to parameters, but today we are doing simulations with more realistic material parameters given by our partner Michelin, and then we can reach 0.6, 0.7, and also we can optimize some parameters to have the maximum apparent friction coefficient. In fact, for the contact between a tire and the road, you have to see the friction coefficient is very beneficial. It's not about dissipation, it's just about adhesion, especially when you have a turn, you have to turn somewhere, and due to a centrifugal force, you need a lot of adherence. Okay, then again some results that give some strange profile, but anyway, here you can see how we reach the steady state regime. Then this is for different speed, 0.4, 0.8, and 1.2. You can see that the shape is very different. The maximum is the same for each curve. Then we start. Here is a solution quickly after starting of rolling. And after half the tow time, we can see in green light the pressure distribution. And what you can see here, it's that after mostly t equals 2 times the reaction time, here we have the blue curve with a circular dot here. We reach almost the steady state solution. Okay. Now this is another example with higher speed. The speed is double, and this time it takes again about 2 times tau to have the steady state solution. And on the right, it will be the same. However, the result is not the same. So now, if you remember EHL lubrication, there is some similarity. Do you remember the peak of pressure at the exit of the contact? Then it's the same. When you have a very low speed, you have something which is quite symmetrical and which is very close to the Hertzian solution. And higher is the rolling speed, higher is the peak of pressure, and the asymmetry of the problem. And this is very similar to EHL problem. And then there is, I think it's a researcher from Italy, Putignano, Carmine Putignano, I think. He did some simulation using a viscoelastic layer between two rollers, and he was able to reproduce the same type of solution with like a lubricant which is viscoelastic. And this is what I said before, how we'll relax the surface. Then here you have the rigid sphere, which is rolling. Then, okay, at time t equals 0, there is no movement. Now you start to move to have the ball rolling. Then you will have, at the beginning, tau divided by 2, you can see the blue curve, which is the geometry of the surface. And for t equal tau, you can see here the green light color. This is geometry after tau time. And then we reach something which is a steady state after 1.5 tau time, which are the red curve and the dash black curve. Okay. And after, this is a steady state solution. Some result about the apparent friction coefficient. Again, the value here is not very important. You can have 10 times higher the friction coefficient. Then this is the effect of the speed. This is the lowest speed. When you double the speed, and when you, this is speed 1, speed 2, speed 3, you can see this is not linear. And in fact, there is some optimum. If you roll too fast, too quickly, you may have a maximum, and then it can be decreasing. Okay. Then the apparent friction coefficient depends on many parameters, including the speed. However, you can see here that when you have the time which is equal to about tau, the reaction time, you have about the steady state regime. Okay. And you have sometimes at the beginning, the friction coefficient is higher than in the steady state. This is possible. And this is in the situation when we have a prescribed displacement. delta equal 0.1 millimeter. Then on the left you have the apparent friction coefficient, and on the right you have the torque. Of course, they are the same. Just the way they are presented is different, but the same. Something funny for the torque is that you reach the steady state regime faster, about at 0.5. Then there is no direct correlation between both parameters, in fact, because also the shift of the contact pressure, the center of contact pressure is different, is also varying in another way. Okay, then this time we will add some inclusions to see the effect when the ball is rolling. And okay, this is just one example. There is different time steps, and of course the contact pressure here is moving. The inclusion is stationary. Okay, you can see here the shape of the Hertzian stress distribution. This is the von Mises stress. Yeah. You can feel where is the inclusion because you can see it. Now the load is almost on the top of the inclusions. Then you have a high stress concentration around the inclusions. However, here we apply displacement. Then when we apply a displacement, the load is very, not the load, yes. When we apply a displacement, in fact, the load is decreasing with time. Then for those that are working on polymeric materials, for example, if you are working on bearings made on polymers, you have to be careful when you apply the load, if it is a load or displacement. Also, for classical steel bearings, very often we have two bearings. We use a preload because we preload the two bearings together. Then we use, for example, a spring, something like that. Then you are sure with a spring that you have the constant load. You have to be careful with the polymeric materials. You can use that with a spring or with a difference of distance. You know, you machine your shaft and your housing, and you say that, okay, I will let 30 micrometers of difference between two surfaces, and 30 micrometers of difference will produce the load. And this is equivalent to have I said before, a spring. Okay, a spring or distance is the same. For me, it's easier to have a spring because there is most flexibility. It's difficult to always machine something at 30 micrometers or for 20 micrometers because you should be very, very accurate. It's very difficult. Now, if you do that for a polymeric bearing, you have to be careful because if you use a distance, when you mount the bearing, the load will be very high and it will relax and the load will decrease. When you use a spring, you will have a constant load. Okay, just a small remark. Okay, then you can see here the inclusion. Now the load is moving. Of course, in front of the contact, you have something which is not anymore axis symmetric for the Hertz solution, because when you indent viscoelastic material, the solution is always axis symmetric when there is no indent. Now when you move, because you have a peak of pressure in the front of the materials, you have some stress concentration that you can see here, which is this one. And after a given time, you have the steady state, and this one will be always the same. And after that, because it takes time for the matrix to relax, even when the load is far from the inclusions, it will take a few times to go back to the initial state, because for the initial state, you should not see the inclusions. It should be blue. The stress should be the same as for the matrix. Something that we observed is that when you put single inclusions, in fact, there is no effect on the inclusions on the apparent friction coefficient. Okay, I think it's too small, especially when it is a small inclusion. There is no effect. Okay, let's have a look on the pressure distribution. Then the same, we impose a displacement that should be always the same, and 0.1 millimeter. This is 100 micrometers. Then here you have an inclusion again. On the right, then gamma is the ratio between the Young modulus of the inclusion to the Young modulus of the matrix. Then gamma equals 1 means that the inclusion has the same stiffness as the matrix initially. However, when then the ball starts to roll, you can see very quickly a very sharp decrease of the pressure, which is due to the fact that the material relaxes, and because you impose a displacement, in fact the corresponding load decreases by 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a very, very strong decrease. And because material relaxes, this time the Young modulus of the inclusions will become larger than the one of the matrix, and you can see it here. Then you have something with one peak is due to the presence of the inclusion, and the other peak is due to the viscoelastic behavior of the matrix. Okay. And after a while, because you will left the inclusion behind you, you have only the steady state solution. Okay. Then if you integrate not the area but the volume below the pressure distribution, you can see that for this situation and this one after a given time, this is not the same. Okay, and then this is why the load is much more smaller in this situation. On the left is the same type of result. This time the inclusion is 10 times softer than the matrix. Then this explains why at the beginning you have here something which is a pressure which is lower than the one on the right here. And after that you can see also the effect of the inclusions with a decrease of the contact pressure nearby the inclusions. And again, after a while, this curve here is the same as this one, because you are far away from the inclusion. Then what is the effect on the apparent friction coefficient? Okay, you can see here there is, for the situation that was on the right, you can see here, okay, there is some effect on the transient apparent friction coefficient, but after a given time there is no effect, in fact, on the apparent friction coefficient. And this is done for a given orientation of the ellipsoidal inclusion, and this time we compare 4 different situations. Blue one is without inclusions, and then for the other one, it corresponds to the black one to an inclusion of the same stiffness initially as the matrix. The red one is 10 times softer, and the green one is 4 times stiffer than the matrix. Then this time you can see some effect on the friction coefficient, typically, which is due to the presence of the inclusion. We may also do the same for some cluster of inclusions, and this time we took only 3 inclusions, and I will show you later for many inclusions. I mean for something which is with inclusion distributed all within the material. Then you can see here some effect. Then this is a homogeneous solution, this is heterogeneous solution, which means that the presence of inclusions will increase the friction coefficient, the apparent friction coefficient, slightly. And the same, then, as I said before, this time we have an infinity of inclusions everywhere, which are well distributed with a regular mesh. And you can see again that if it is homogeneous solutions, if you have stiffer inclusions, you will increase the friction coefficient, and if you have softer inclusions, or cavity or voids, you will decrease the apparent friction coefficient. It depends what you want to produce. And this is the same. This is just here I plot the difference between the blue curve and the red one, or the blue curve and the black one. And this play a role which is quite significant in the transient regime, because it can change the friction coefficient by typically 15 or 20%, both increase or both decrease. Then after a given time, when you reach a steady state, there is still some effect, but it is less pronounced than before. And another type of simulation. This time this is not spherical inclusions. We use ellipsoidal inclusions with different orientations. Then here it's not purely vertical, it's 80 degree, then almost vertical. And here it's 45 degree. And you can see also the effect on the apparent friction coefficient. Okay, this is in blue again. This is a homogeneous solution, and you can see that the effect of that. Then you can architecture your material for if you want to increase or decrease the friction coefficient. The same type of graph to show the difference. You can see a change up to almost 50% of the friction coefficient in the transverse regime. In fact, when you start to slide, the beginning is very important. When you are already sliding, it's too late. You will fall down, but for example, if you have some shoes, but what happened at the beginning is very, very important. And this is why the transverse regime is, I think, is important. Then this intermediate conclusion is that the presence of a cluster of inclusions may change the apparent friction coefficient, and then you can play on that to improve or increase or decrease the friction coefficient. Also, we did some tests with with two viscoelastic materials. Then Ke here means that the sphere is viscoelastic and the half plane is viscoelastic. But we consider here two different relaxation times. Then if T1 equals tau1 equals tau2, this is the red line, you have this solution. Then in fact you have the same material. Okay. And now if okay, then it depends what is the sphere. If the sphere is 1 and the half space is 2 or the opposite, I don't remember in fact. But playing with that, you can see that you can increase the apparent friction coefficient when the relaxation time is 2 times higher for the other material, or you can decrease this apparent friction coefficient. Case tends to infinite. This one corresponds to one viscoelastic material. Then this is, in other words, this is in green one viscoelastic materials, so two same viscoelastic materials, then one viscoelastic against a rigid one. This is two viscoelastic materials which are the same. Then you increase the apparent friction coefficient. There is some optimum. And also, you can also have something which is lower than just with one viscoelastic material. Then, okay, you can play with all parameters. After, and that's what I said before. Again, you can see an optimum value. Here, for example, for K equal 1, you can see the maximum value of the friction coefficient. And, we didn't try to go further for that. Okay, now we are also interested by the viscoelastic material with many layers, coatings. This is also because we were interested by heterogeneity because it was not published in the literature. The solution for the viscoelastic materials is now well known, especially in the steady state. Then for the transient regime, it was quite new when we did that at the beginning. And then what we did very recently, was to look at viscoelastic materials. First, we used one viscoelastic layer against viscoelastic materials, or elastic or rigid. The solution for a viscoelastic layer on a rigid surface was already known, and for a viscoelastic layer on an elastic substrate also was known, but not for a viscoelastic layer on a viscoelastic material. And after that, we extended that to any number of layers for any thickness and any type of properties. I will show you that now. Then we have an infinite number of layers. There is no difficulties. What we consider, again, we have a normal pressure, we have the shear stress, but what I will show you, I think there is here there is no shear stress. It's only purely normal load, and then we have different thickness. One is the first layer, two, etc. And between each layers, we assume that there is perfect bonding. Perfect bonding means we have the same displacement. Okay, not the same stress, but the same displacement. First, we compare the solution to the solution of O'Sullivan. Okay, but this is a classical result. Then this is only for elastic solutions, and you have two layers, the same as yesterday. I told about that. We consider that in this simulation that the thickness of there is only one layer for the plot on the left. The thickness of the layer is equal to the contact radius. And then by changing the Young modulus of the coating, in red you have soft coatings, which is, oh no, in fact here there is two layers. Okay, here there is two layers. Then this is a mistake. This one, in fact, this is not the O'Sullivan. There is no comparison with the O'Sullivan. Okay, this is H is half the contact radius, and then the two layers A1, 1 and 2 correspond to in the O'Sullivan approach single layer. Okay, then you can see on the left, then in black, you have something which is homogeneous because the two layers have the same properties as the matrix, as the substrate. For the red one, the first layer is 2 times softer, and then the second layer is half of the stiffness of the first one, and the substrate is 1/4 of the stiffness of the first layer. Then deeper you are going, softer is the material. Then you can see here the pressure distribution, which is logically, in fact. And this is the opposite for the blue curve. When you go deeper, the material is stiffer. Then 2 times for the second layer and 4 times for the substrate. Then, okay. Although it's possible to use, like that, I say, Prony decomposition. Okay, maybe I will switch this one. I will go directly to some results. Okay, we already discussed such type of results. This is for homogeneous viscoelastic material. Okay, this is another type of results for viscoelastic materials that are homogeneous. You can see the apparent friction coefficient can vary a lot during the transient regime compared to the steady state regime. But okay, these are other simulations. Okay, now let's have a look on results for bilayer materials. Then we have 2 viscoelastic materials. Then C means coating and S means substrate. Okay. Then H should be the thickness of the layer. It should be the contact radius. Okay. Then on the left, this is at a time which is equal to 2 times the relaxation time of the substrate. Then we should be here in the steady state regime normally. And then you have different results depending on the Young modulus at infinity for the coating. Then what does it mean? It means, for example, in red, here, this curve, the Young modulus of the coating for 0 frequency, then at the infinity, is 4 times smaller than the Young modulus of the substrate. This is why you have a decrease of the maximum pressure and you have a wider contact area. And at the opposite, when the coating has a Young modulus at infinity, then at the 0 frequency, which is 4 times higher than the one of the substrate, you observe a peak of pressure. And a significant increase compared to the homogeneous solution, which is the black one. Then this is a contact. And now what is interesting here is the stress at the interface. Why? Because then this is a G2 parameter. because you can have some delamination between the coating and the substrate. So this parameter is interesting. And then you can see here that the most detrimental situation is when you have a hard coating. Okay, when the viscoelastic material, in fact, is less viscoelastic, when the coating is less viscoelastic than the substrate, for example. And this is the worst situation. Then the best situation, I can say, is when the coating is at infinity is softer than the substrate. And also there is some effect on the apparent friction coefficient that you can see here. I will not discuss that, but when the coating is harder at infinity than the substrate, it will decrease the friction coefficient. It's normal because there is less dissipation and less deformation. Then I think it's quite logical. When each time you find some result, you have to understand, you have to try to explain with your hand if the results are correct or not. And okay, when it is logical, there is no problem. When it is not logical, you have to think about why. Now I don't remember what here. Okay, here this is the effect not of the Young modulus, but on the relaxation time of the two materials. Then again, 2 tau c means the coating relaxation time, and S tau means the substrate relaxation time. Then you can see here that the pressure is increased significantly when the relaxation time of the coating is 2 times the one of the substrate. And the opposite, it is decreasing when it is softer, when it is half of the relaxation time of the substrate. Again, here this is von Mises stress. Then the most critical situation is when the coating has a relaxation time 2 times higher than the substrate, when it is higher. And you can see here this time a very strong influence on the apparent friction coefficient. Okay, then the same, you can imagine a new materials with several layers of viscoelastic materials. You can use some heterogeneity, some inclusions you can put in the coating or in the substrate. Everything can be useful to modify the friction coefficient. If you use inclusions, if you remember yesterday, you should use them only in the first layer, because when they are far from the contact, they have no effect, because they are not solicited by the loading. You should put them only on the first layer. But with that, you may have some way to try to improve the, or decrease or improve the apparent friction coefficient. For example, I will say, for a polymeric bearing, if you have a viscoelastic material, the idea will be to have a very low apparent friction coefficient, because it means less energy, okay, less dissipation. Now, if you are thinking about the contact between the shoes and the floor, or a tire on the pavement, you need to increase the apparent friction coefficient. Then it depends on your application. Then this is maybe the last simulation I wanted to show you. This is okay. Then this time we have many layers. This is an academic example, which means nothing. But here you have the first layer is this is the Young modulus. Okay, this is the Young modulus, the initial Young modulus of the first coating, second coating. Then you alternate low, high, Young modulus. Here, this is in fact the example here is when it is very hot during the day, and when it is very cold during the night. Not here. Here it's always hot. But then I was not able to put the name on Palakadi. But okay. Then here, for example, when it is in a very hot country, in Africa or in Italy, because it is cold during the night, the asphalt, the bituminous material is cold, then is very stiff. And but there is still some heat below that is stored, and you can have a decrease like that of the Young modulus for different layers. and it can be the opposite. Sometimes in a cold country, in Brittany, it's raining a lot, it's cold. But sometimes it can be sunny. Then if it is sunny all the day, the temperature of the asphalt will increase, and then the young modulus will decrease. Then this type of situation can be realistic for that. Okay. And you can see on the bottom view the effect when you have a rolling sphere on that. And this is academic, of course, it's a rigid rolling sphere, but you can see here very well the different layers. Use animation. Then first we start to indent the body, and then we start to roll. And you can see here the effect of that. Then something interesting here is that, like if you have a gradient material, and then you go slowly from a high young modulus to a small young modulus, and then you have a transition here, then you can almost not see the different layers. This is, like I say, an ideal material maybe. But here you can see the interface between the bottom layer and the substrate. Okay. This can be very realistic for pavement, because for pavement you have different layers. You have a first layer of a few centimeters. After that you have a second layer, maybe 10 centimeters or more, and after that you have some rocks. Then you have very different properties. This is what I wanted to show you before the break, and I think we are almost on time, even if I started late. But if you have any question, I will be happy to respond to your question. After that, I will show you an application to contact between a tire and the road with attractive rolling contact.
Just had one clarity. In slide 47, you had shown the effect of
This 47. I know there is two numbers, I think. So this which one? Which one? Before?
You had mentioned different coating layers with different elastic properties, like different Young's modulus. You showed me bilayer.
No.
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah. Just to clarify, Professor, in this case, not this one. Previous. Prior to this.
Before?
Yeah, this next.
This one?
Yeah, this slide. So in this case, when you have, in the first case, where E1 is less than E2 by 2 and E4 by 4, that corresponds to a soft coating, right?
The first one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And the other one, like the blue one, stands for the hard coating, like when the coating is harder than the substrate.
Yes, yes. For the first one, the young modulus here is, for example, the first one, red dot. Something is here you have 4, here you have 2, you have 1.
Yeah.
Okay, 4, 2, 1, and for the blue one, this is the opposite. You have 4, 2, 1.
Because I think in the initial I got confused. I thought you were saying the other way around.
Yes, yes,
So I
okay.
just wanted to
Yes, the way, okay. It's,
So this would be applicable also to non-viscoelastic materials, like normal coatings on metal.
yes, yes, of course. Yes, yes, yes. In fact, the solution for an elastic coating of uniform thickness is very well known since O'Sullivan, and a lot of researchers develop the same technique to have several coatings. Maybe for elastic bodies, there is some recent work by the group of Jen Wang at Northwestern. What they did, they modify the interface between the different layers, and they were able, for example, to say that, okay, at this layer, we may have sliding. There is no continuity of the displacement. Okay, and they propose a numerical an algorithm, a numerical mathematical background to solve the problem with any type of boundary conditions for different layers. But it is very well known, in fact. Only if you have a coating of uniform thickness. This is why we develop a specific technique for the wear of coating, which is to modelize this coating by inclusions, cuboid inclusions, in fact, everywhere, then we can remove the inclusions because our solution is correct anyway. And, but it's complicated because it's a very heavy simulation when you do that.
The friction coefficient effect, what you showed, that's in generic, like in Formula One tires, dry tires and wet tires, right? They will have a big impact.
Yes.
They do anything specific, like to, maybe I'll put it general, like what exactly the dry tires versus wet? We know that friction coefficient plays a role, but in the reality, practically, how they
Okay.
change anything?
Yes. In fact, I would like to say that what I have presented here is mostly related to a wet contact. Okay. Not because the friction coefficient is low, because again it can be very high if you change the parameters. In fact, I don't know the parameters, and we have to ask to the people who are working for. And in the literature, when you find a paper, for example, carbon and Putig-Nano, they are working for Hutchinson, and in their papers I gave some data, but I'm not sure they are the right data. With our partner, we have right to publish something with something they gave to us, but these are not the real properties. Okay, then to go back to the problem, this is mostly for wet contact. Why? Because here we do not consider adhesion. When you have rubber, you know, vulcanization, you put two rubber together, they stick. It's very, very strong. And you know, although adhesion, there is some almost negative pressure and so on. Then it's another difficulty. We work on that elsewhere, but here we do not consider adhesion. Then it is like a wet contact, because when you have some water, there is no more adhesion. This is one of the key. Okay.
Regarding one question, when we are applying for inclusion angle, when we are going for 80 to minus 80, it is very drastic change in friction.
Yes.
So what is actually possible reason if you are changing the angle to minus 80 degree?
Something like that.
It is going for minus 80, it is having some.
I think that
Is it because of the orientation it is now supporting the things?
in fact, I had maybe an answer, but I wanted to check the answer before to respond to you. And I can see, I'm not sure of what I will say. Okay, but in fact, the inclusions are always at the same depth in the simulation. We just modify the angle. And when you increase the angle, the surface of the inclusion becomes closer to the surface. And we know that when it is close to the surface, closer it is to the surface, higher is the effect. Then I check that on for the top figure, top curve. Here, this corresponds to the highest angle. Then, okay, then you can see that the effect is higher.
Minus
But in the opposite, for minus, this is not the case. Then I don't know really why. I don't know really why.
Is it because of the
But maybe this is a cavity. This is a cavity. Then if you yes, I don't know.
because of the direction of rolling?
Okay, between minus and positive. Yes, this is yes. This is only due to the direction of.
Directional ruling is there, we are not.
It's from to the left from the right, the way to the right. Yes, always.
On that basis only we are deciding the angle.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, there is some effect. This is, but I don't know if it is important or not. Yes, there is some effect each time. But why we have different results for high tilting angle and small tilting angle, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
So we'll break for
Tea time?
yeah, and 11:30 we'll start because we'll start a little early because 1 o'clock we have to go for lunch. We have a lunch. Yeah, yeah, you know, I got a 5.